Hey, everybody, welcome to today's episode of the Course Building Secrets podcast. I am so happy to be here today. With me today is Ash Wilder, our guest interviewer. So welcome, Ash. I'm so happy to have you on the show. To get us started, tell us a little bit about yourself, your business, and what you are up to.
Thanks. Hi, I'm really happy to be here. So my business is called the Story Breath School, and the Story Breath School is like muse-enticing activities and mythopoetic exercises to help people get writing and creative in a way that's academia free. There's a lot of walls up around how we learn writing because we've kind of portioned it off into this thing that we learn in school, and then we don't get to go take it like we take a cooking class or a dance class, kind of just for the heck of it. So there's kind of all of this pressure that's there. So the Story Breath School exists in a lot of ways to tear down those boundaries and give people access to this kind of support in a way that doesn't feel so intimidating.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So is it for authors or just anyone who wants to write better?
Yeah, there's kind of like 3 levels, and my online coursework exists for like level 1 and level 2, and that's a poetry course. And then every once in a while, I'll fold into that just like a general writing course, depending on what's coming up with, my newsletter readers. But so journey, like level 1 is really, I want to find my voice. Like maybe, you're neurodivergent or highly sensitive, or just didn't have the opportunity in school to really play with what it feels like to experiment with language on the page in a way that sounds like you. So that's level 1. Level 2 is like, I have my voice, or maybe I'm still finding it, but I really want to hone my craft. I want to learn more of like the techniques of writing, grammar, things like that, things that'll help you tell your story on the page. And this can, take the form of personal essays or poetry or, content copy on websites. But it's like, how do we concisely and briefly say what we need to say in a way that other people can understand? And then stage 3 is, I am an author, or I have a dream of becoming an author or a writer, and I really want to take it to that next level. And that's where I offer one-on-one coaching for people.
Yeah, super cool. Okay, so I have all sorts of questions. It's interesting though. So when you're talking about finding your voice, and you specialize in helping people who are highly sensitive to like wanting to figure that out, right? So
Correct.
So it's interesting that you say that. So one of the things, so I have owned an agency for like 16 years in an online business. And just recently, I think it was maybe 6 months to a year ago, I was like, I am not very good at telling my story. Like I couldn't get it out, even just to verbalize it, much less write it. So it's interesting because I did work with a story coach. It sounds somewhat similar, where it's like, here's how you tell your story in a compelling way that is congruent with who you are, and how, because it is, there's sometimes there's like a block between how you want to say it and having it sound like you, right? So that's what you're talking about, is being able to help people articulate that and then be able to write it.
Right, exactly. And then, kind of another layer of this too is, for a while I was working with a woman who specializes in flower essences that are read through like an astrology lens. So she has this really kind of wild business. And one of our goals for our work together was like, how do we distill that into a way of speaking where people really understood what she was up to in her business? Like, how do we just take this complicated thing and distill it down into something that's consumable?
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So, yeah. And so not only articulating your story, but helping other people understand your story and what that looks like. Yeah. Very cool. Okay. So I love this. So how did you get started in doing this kind of work? What's your background and kind of what brought you to this place?
It's kind of multi-pronged and interesting. As everything in life, we like to distill it down into a straight line for people. And sometimes distilling it down into a straight line doesn't actually tell the whole story. So the whole story is that I've been writing since I was a child. It was like my way of making sense of the world. And then I got into massage therapy and medical and sports massage therapy and started having access to professional athletes and, just really high performing people. And then I, as we all did, shifted in the pandemic. I had received a coaching certification in a neuroscience backed program in early 2019. And then in 2020, I didn't feel like I could continue doing massage. I was getting mixed messages from the government. We all were. It was kind of that crazy place. And so I pivoted really hard into this neuroscience-based coaching. And what I realized through continuing to do that work with people is that I was drawing so much from this like creative writing background that I had to help people facilitate their own voice. So that was really what I ended up doing. And then it was like a matter of my brand kind of catching up with that transition. So that's how the Storybreath School was born. And what makes, the writing coaching that I do really fun and interesting is that it does have this like deep pocket in mindfulness and body awareness and also neuroscience. That's all of my background. So I can bring that into sessions with people and the coursework that I create so that highly sensitives and neurodivergent people, they don't feel like they have to push past their nervous system's boundaries in order to get something done. So we really learn how to work with those systems to create habits that can help clarity continue coming up and like that writing focus, become easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I love that. Okay. So you had to pivot. Did you start doing more one-on-one, or what, did you go directly to packaging some of your stuff?
I started with one-on-one.
Yeah.
Yep. I kind of felt like that was the easiest pivot. For massage therapy, like that had really built on a one-on-one basis. So that was how I started. And then I did courses and started off by just doing live courses because I felt like I want that relationship with the, primary instructor. If they're completely removed, I don't always feel like I can trust the product. So that's how that kind of started. And then have been trickling in, more of the passive coursework, but also giving a lot of access. Because especially for, highly sensitive people, there's searching that happens for finding the right answer for the assignment or for the coach or for, but if we can give each other permission and just hold that space for I don't knows or for like breaking the mold within the program, that's where people's voice really comes alive in their writing.
Yeah, sometimes they just need that reinforcement, right? Or just that just to be able to have somebody else say, yeah, like look at it from that different perspective, right? Yeah. So I love that because so this is a journey that a lot of people take, right? Is I have this expertise, I have this kind of thing that I love to do. People are now starting to pay me for it. I'm doing it one-on-one. Oh gosh, now I don't have time to do all the one-on-ones because I'm doing, continuously teaching or repeating yourself. I call it 50 first dates, right? Like you, you're teaching your curriculum and coaching. So you're packaging your curriculum now, and then you're able to still coach, have those personal conversations, which gives you that fulfillment, but also gives that ability for somebody to connect with you in a different way, but gets your message out there. So I love that. And it allows you to obviously scale and see more people, right? So you can put them in. What are some like key approaches that you take in not only your package curriculum, but in your coaching that you feel makes a huge difference in people staying and engaging and actually getting results?
Yeah, I think my customer journey is really clear. So, the stage one people, the people who are just unsure, maybe they don't even call themselves writers or want to, but they just like know that they need to be able to write better. they know that, their access to this sort of work and to me is as deep as they want it to go, but they know that they can start with these free events, these workshops, and then this poetry course. And then it's kind of the same for stage 2. Like, they know where they can plug in, where they can get support, and then what the next thing can look like. So many people, even if I'm doing the one-on-one coaching with them, they'll still sign up for a poetry course or for a workshop or free event, just because it's like more support in a variety of different ways. But it allows people to kind of plug in for where their pain points are at that time. Because one thing that we know in any sort of self-growth business or personal development business is that people's pain points return after they've reached a certain new level. It's like a spiral staircase. You're kind of seeing the same thing from a slightly different angle. So being able to tap back into these other things is really helpful for just like the dynamic. It's like the dynamic conversation of becoming a writer or becoming a person who knows themselves better through writing, that space. So I think that is really helpful and important, and has probably put me farther along than when I was just like, I do writing things.
Right. For sure. And I love that, the personalized levels where people can go, oh yeah, this is me, this is me, this is me. And then, you have that ascension path that people can go through to get sort of that deeper skill set, deeper level with you as you're working. So I love that. For those of you who are sort of new to this journey, thinking about the customer experience is really important. And because if it's clear for your customers, it helps you create a clearer program. Because that's one of the things that, to your point, like, oh, I can help anyone who wants to write. Well, my guess is now that you are specific, you're actually helping more people who are a better fit and more people in general, because you're being specific about what it is that you do. So help me understand. So people come to you primarily, people buy programs or buy coaching from people when they have a problem. So do you primarily work with entrepreneurs who are told that they have to write emails and social media and blog posts and all the things, and they're like, I don't know how to write? Or is it really like aspiring authors who want to sit down and write a book? Like, do you differentiate between the two?
That's a really good question. And I started off by doing exactly that. I used to have 2 doors on my website, and I was like, content writers / entrepreneurs, come over here. And then creative writers or aspiring authors, come over here. And I found that didn't work. That, what most people fall into both of those categories. If you're writing content for your business, you're probably a creative because you're brave enough to be building a business. And there might be this creative writing pocket that we're going to want to fill so that it can bleed over into the content writing. And when I had those doors, I had a little link right below that was like, don't know which one of these you are. That's fine. Just book a call. And that, I think too, if I can go back to your previous question, was a huge help for just building my business, because when somebody books one of those 22-minute calls, I call it a dip your toes in consultation. It's like a no pressure, let's just see where you are. Okay, great. This might be where you plug in. If I'm not the right fit, I have a list of other people that like can help you get to where you want to be. And from those calls, I was realizing that people really just like wanted something that was tailor-made for them if they were going to do one-on-one coaching. And while they wanted their projects to move forward, they wanted the freedom to be like, this is an acute thing. We're going to work on this right now. Like, this is a thing that I want to, drive at consistently over time. And most people didn't want to do a 1 hour every week for 6 weeks or 12 weeks sort of thing. They wanted like a 1 hour on week 1 and then a 4-hour block on week 4 so that they could compile everything that they had written over the past however long and really focus it. But again, it kind of depends on the projects. So I have people that I work with where we sit down and we are working on their website content. We're trying to figure out their copy and their voice through it. And then I have clients who are working on a bigger book or a bigger project, something that's long form. And then I have clients who want to get published in a variety of areas. So they just want, somebody who can look at each piece before they send it out for publication and be like, great, this is what, we need to shift, or maybe this place is a better place to send this submission than this one. It's pretty varied. I think that my ICA, more than what they're writing, is this highly sensitive, maybe neurodivergent person who really wants to dive into their writing more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. I like it. I love your perspective of thinking from multi lenses, right? Like it's a multi-stepped path. And for those of you who are getting started, this is the point where you start to grow, is when you can look at where people fit and then how to bridge that gap. I will tell you, for everyone, I'm going to give you Asha's website and access to any of her materials in the show notes. But I did go out to your website, and I have to say that that you have an energy about you that shows up actually on your website. And I was a little cranky this morning, I will admit to all of my listeners. And I went to your site, I'm like, oh, I feel kind of relaxed now and ready to have this conversation. So there is something about how you are approaching, even your presence just on is very calming. That shows up in your website. And I don't know if it's because of the theme that you have. I will keep that as a secret so everybody can go look at it. But the theme that you have on your website, but it did draw me in almost from that calmness perspective, right? It's fine to find your story. It's fine to start writing, just do it. It's good. And so I think it's interesting too, because you're demonstrating on your site how to find your voice, because I assume that this is reflective of you, right? And so for those of you who are getting started too, match your personality, match your expertise with how you're putting yourself out there, and then you're attracting the right people who are coming in, who want kind of that calm presence. And I'm just assuming this is the first time that we've talked, but I'm just assuming a calm presence to help you uncover something without kind of the high energy piece to it, where you don't frenzy people up, right? It's just all right, let's just figure this out, right? And so definitely go check out our website, because I think it demonstrates that. The other thing it demonstrates that I just want to call out is that path that you're talking about, that you do have those 3 levels. And so if you are kind of looking at how to structure your business, it's a great model to look at the 3 different pieces. So there you go. That was a quick endorsement for you, but I did like that as I went out, and surprisingly, and maybe it was the right until your chair becomes your butt or something.
Oh, right until your chair becomes the shape of your butt. Yeah.
Yes. Right until the chair becomes the shape of your butt. Maybe it was that. I was like, I love that. I hope that doesn't happen, but I get it. That's very descriptive. So that was cute. Awesome. Okay, cool. So for those people who are listening who want to either package their expertise or kind of get into, building an online business, what kind of advice do you have for them? What's your biggest tip or trick that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, it's a little counterculture. So I would, I have built my business social media free. Mm-hmm. I've gotten on podcasts, and I've done some emails and word of mouth. And it's been a little bit slower of a growth, but for me and for my ICA, or my ideal client, being on social media can feel a little overwhelming. And so for me to be putting my energy there, I don't even do it personally. It was just a very clear thing. And I had gone through a lot of business coaches and marketing programs that really pushed it. And it took me a while to find the right mentors and kind of, yeah, the right community of other entrepreneurs and business owners that either weren't doing it or weren't relying totally on it
Mm.
to find my way through it. But you do not need social media. If you do not want to do social media, that's fine. No, it might take a little bit longer, but for me, it feels really good to know that my list is resilient enough to not rely on that.
Mhm.
That there's
Well, and it
some
sounds like it's congruent with your brand too. Like I'm exactly
exactly.
the same way where I had the same advice and I felt
Mhm.
like a dancing monkey kind of, thing where I was like, "Ah," all the time.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. I'm like, nope, nope.
Mm.
I can be really strategic and intentional about who I'm attracting and how I'm out there without feeling like it's a volume play on how much I can show up on social media. And so I think that's interesting because honestly, I feel like that's the pendulum is sort of swinging that direction more and more, which you're happy about, I'm happy about, because I do think that while visibility is really important, there are other ways to become visible other than just, the daily reel or,
Mhm.
how many random videos can you put out there that aren't meaningful? Um,
Mhm.
so you heard that from us first, people. Like, don't just do it to do it. And I think to me, that's the bigger thing, right? Is the advice that you get is like, just show up on social media every day and like it what matters is how many views you have. And it's like, no, not really. What
Mhm.
matters is how you connect with your people. And your people probably aren't on social media in the same way that you're not on social media, right? Or the way that they're consuming social media is different than mainstream, gurus out there who are just, get as many views as possible and then maybe one or two of them will convert. So
Mhm.
I love that because I think that you're right. That's the message that we get is just do this cookie cutter approach and it isn't that way. But my guess is that when you teach people how to uncover their story and be able to tell their story clearly, that the social media or the podcast interviews or the speaking engagements or however it is that people are becoming visible becomes more strategic and meaningful because they're leading with that story of who they are and finding their voice versus just sort of the pray and spray method, right? Like, so
Yeah.
that probably brings it full circle to you too, right? Is that you're able to help people publish in a way that's meaningful instead of noise.
Well, and I think that when your voice is strong and your story is strong and your message is strong, like it's like a magnet. And there was a time when I was like really considering getting on social media where I just sat down and I was like, okay, but how much do I trust the universe or God or creator? Like, if I'm showing up and I'm doing the work and I'm doing it authentically and intentionally, is impatience the thing that is driving me towards wanting to do social media? Or can I trust that, like, I'm showing up in a way that eventually is going to bring the right people towards me? And that doesn't mean not being visible. I've put myself out there on a lot of different platforms in a lot of different ways. It also means that I've gotten really creative with my marketing. Um, yeah. So,
I love that. I love that. Very cool. Okay. What's one book, tool, or resource that you cannot live without?
oh, Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I ask this question every single time I interview a guest, and most of the time that's the book that comes up. It is a game changer, isn't it?
It is. And I think that when you really start looking for those 1% differences, the like, this isn't going to change my life tomorrow, it also starts to detox the dopamine addiction that we have. It's
Mhm.
like we're not looking for the giant win anymore. We're looking for like the consistent practice that's going to bring us towards the goal. So I think it also gets us to think more realistically when we're not talking about habits.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Awesome. All right. Very cool. So for my listeners who want to find out more about you And obviously go look at that website that I mentioned. Give us a shout out to your website. And then again, I'll put all of that in the show notes. So how can we find you? What is the best way to find you? Not on social media. You just heard her.
Not on social media. Yep. www.storybreathschool.com.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. And until next time.
Thank you so much for having me.